Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gone Fishing podcast. My name is Eric Wiedeke. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Eric Wiedeke, and do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel. Really helps us get more content to more eyes, especially at this time when you've got the Heat and Panthers both in their respective finals. You've got the Marlins playing some pretty good baseball at 4 games over 500. You've got the Miami Hurricanes getting ready to start up their season. The transfer portal is always active in college football, and the Dolphins starting up relatively soon here as we head into June on the sports calendar. So tons to talk about here. It is June 5th. The Marlins are 32-28, 4 games over, tied for the third best 60-game start in franchise history. This ball club right now at 4 games over after sweeping the A's. Starting to draw a little bit of attention here. Was at the game yesterday on Sunday, and the crowd was pretty alive for the Fish. They did boo Sandy in the third inning, so we'll talk about that a little bit. But overall, the Marlins sweep the A's. They take care of business. 4 games over. Getting into your players of the week here, you have Luis Ariz hitting 522 over the week with a 560 on base and a 652 slugging for a 1212 OPS. I mean, I can't emphasize enough just how good Luis Ariz has been for this ball club. To be hitting 392 into June is absolutely ridiculous. The guy is just a machine, and the best part is really you can tell his approach is contagious, and it's spreading to some of the younger players on the team, which is really a huge boon for this squad. Your pitcher of the week is Edward Cabrera. Saturday night, 6 innings, 10 strikeouts, 1 walk, 4 hits. He's strung together 3 or 4 pretty solid starts in a row now. So that's something that you definitely look forward to out of him. Especially as the Marlins at 4 games over, they have a wild card spot right now, so teams are chasing them. And especially with this soft spot in the schedule, still you've got 6 more upcoming against the Royals and the White Sox. The Marlins should be looking to extend their lead in the wild card as much as they can. And with these guys pitching the way that they have been lately, I like their chances of doing that going forward. Your minor league player of the week, or I will say weeks here, added a second week just because I wanted to give this guy a little bit of recognition. And Jacob Amaya, over his last 11 games, he's hitting 350, slugging 750, an OPS well over 1,000 for Amaya of late. And then on top of that, he's got 5 homers and 14 runs batted in over his last 11 games. Amaya, a guy that can come in and play anywhere on that left side of the infield. That's when you're looking at spots that the Marlins may want to upgrade, you're probably squarely looking at third base and shortstop right now. Catcher definitely still in consideration for this ball club, as reported by the Herald a week or 2 ago. But overall, you're looking at a guy like Amaya who can come up and potentially platoon with Wendell or play third base outright. If Segura just doesn't get right here pretty soon. So he looks like a guy that's raring to come up. And your minor league pitcher of the week, a little bit of a cop-out. I'm taking Trevor Rogers on his rehab start. 4 innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, no runs. Rogers looked really good. And that kind of segues me into, what I want to talk about right now, which is kind of the cavalry that's coming over the next week or so for this Miami Marlins ball club. You've got Trevor Rogers on his rehab assignment. You've got AJ Puck on his. He struck out the side a few days ago in his 1 inning of work at Double-A Jacksonville, or at Double-A Pensacola. And then on top of that, you've got Jazz, who was on with the Marlins radio guys, Kyle Seeloff and them, a few days ago, and he said that he expects to be back within a week, by about Saturday. And so you're looking at this roster right now, and these are the guys that are extending, that are getting you over 500 more and more and more. And you're trying to figure out, okay, well, how are we going to fit these pieces back in? Now, granted, that's a great problem for them to have. You look at you're gonna kind of go step by step with this. So you look at Rogers, for example. Rogers is taking over for Sandy. He's not taking over for Cabrera right now, the way that he's pitched over his last 3 or 4 starts. Luzardo's been pretty consistent for them all year, despite being a little disappointing his last time out. Braxton Garrett against teams not named the Atlanta Braves has been absolutely phenomenal this year. And Yuri Perez has been just magnificent since being called up, pitching to a 2.25 ERA. In his first 5 starts, a 3-1 record. He's definitely infused a little bit of life into this team. So you wonder, where does Trevor Rogers fit into this? Well, considering that Perez likely has a pretty strict innings limit on him, there are a few different ways that you can go with this. It wouldn't shock me to see the Marlins go with a 6-man rotation going forward, letting Sandy go every 5 days and to kind of keep Yuri fresh as long as possible throughout that. And then you look at guys that go down. Probably George Soriano would be going down for him. Making room for AJ Puck is probably even more difficult, considering the way that the bullpen's pitched lately. Nardi's really come on strong. Okert's been great. Scott's been great. Chargois been great. Floro struggled in that kind of makeshift closer role, specifically not when he comes into the 9th inning in a non-save situation. He's kind of blown it a little bit. Brazaban struggling maybe over his last couple starts. Or over his last couple outings. So maybe Puck goes up and Brazaban is the guy that's unfortunately sent down. I don't think you're going to send down a veteran like Matt Barnes. And I hope that they don't go back to 5-man rotation and send Yuri down to AAA, because he really has nothing to prove at that level anymore. I think he's a guy that's already established that he belongs in the big leagues. And I'd like to see him stay with the big ball club going forward for this team. So secondarily, now we talk about Jazz coming back, and really that could add some real dynamism to your lineup, because you're looking at a top 5 in the order. For example, yesterday versus the A's in that 7-5 victory, you had Luis Arias, you had Brian De La Cruz, you had Jesus Sanchez, Garrett Cooper, Yuli Gurriel. You're 1 through 5 in the order, and that's not even considering Jorge Soler, who didn't get to start yesterday, ended up pinch hitting for Jonathan Davis in the bottom of the 8th. But that's not even counting him, and he would usually slot in at that 4 spot. Gurriel moves down to 5, or Cooper moves down to 5, Gurriel to 6. But 7, 8, and 9 in the lineup right now, you're looking at, for example, today you had Segura, Wendell, Stallings, or some combination, Jonathan Davis mixed in every once in a while. That's really where I think the benefit of Jazz coming back lies. Although, I think the Marlins are going to have some really interesting they're going to have some pretty interesting acrobatics to pull off when it comes to that. I assume Garrett Hampson would be the guy that goes down, especially after they acquire Jonathan Davis, when Jazz does inevitably come back up. But going forward, it's going to be interesting to see how they try to work in Garrett Cooper, Jorge Soler, and Yuli Gurriel into the lineup for this ball club, because I think Gurriel is your starting first baseman now. I think they've made that decision. Does the answer become you play Soler a little bit more out and right? Does the answer become Gurriel gets some reps at third base with Segura struggling? Does the answer become, in those games, do you start playing Jazz at shortstop a little bit every once in a while and kind of move him around? I know that they've wanted him to kind of grow into that everyday center fielder, but if you're looking to get your best bats into the lineup, it seems like you're going to have to get creative. That might be an outfield of Sanchez in left or Soler in left, De La Cruz in center, Sanchez in right, and Jazz playing short, Gurriel playing first, Cooper DHing. And I think that that's probably, one of your better configurations as far as that goes. So long story short, I think these are good problems for them to have. because they have bats that they want to get in the lineup, that they're going to have to get creative with to get in the lineup. And I think that it says something that you have enough of that to kind of help carry them through a little bit. But overall, I think the next thing that we want to get into is over the next 6 games or so, you've got the Royals, you've got the White Sox, you're 32-28, 4 games over in the wild card. How do the Marlins stack up against the other contenders? Well, I think when you look at all 3 facets of this Marlins ball club right now, starting pitching, bullpen, lineup, I think they're in a really good spot because you consider where the strength of this team coming into the season was perceived to be their starting pitching. Oh, it's awesome. It's fantastic. It's great. To be quite frank with everyone, it's been really underwhelming so far, at least in comparison to where I think a lot of people thought that their rotation could be, which was top 5 in all of baseball, even after losing Pablo. I think, admittedly, your rotation right now, I think you're looking at a little bit of positive regression from Sandy. He'll kind of regress back to the mean. Cabrera looks to be kind of turning the corner a little bit. Luzardo's going to be really consistent. He's going to be Luzardo. Perez, when he does pitch, I think, like I said, I think he's shown that he belongs and can be a really effective, even if it's only for 5 innings, he can give you a really effective 5 innings almost every time out. Braxton Garrett, as I mentioned, he's been fantastic. And Trevor Rogers can come back and really add some depth to this rotation and give you 6 guys in the rotation that can give you 5 innings at least. And then guys like Luzardo and Cabrera and Sandy and Rogers, those are all bigger guys. They're built to go 6-7 innings if they are able to kind of work through the lineup 3 times out. And then you look at the bullpen. The bullpen's set as far as I'm concerned. I think right now you're looking at when Puck comes back, it's Puck. Your setup men are Floro, Chargois, Okert, and Scott. You've got 4 setup men, which is a fantastic luxury to have, and you're comfortable with any of them coming in the 8th inning. Andrew Nardi's been really good of late. He's your like 5th best bullpen guy. You've got Matt Barnes still. You've got Huascar Brazoban. I think Brazoban probably gets the short end of the stick when Puck does eventually come back. So I think he'll be that guy. Brian Hoeing might stay as your long man in the bullpen. Maybe Braxton Garrett goes back to doing that role if they really are sold on him in that role. I already mentioned, I think George Soriano is going to be a guy that heads back down to AAA. So as far as their pitching goes, I think that they're really set to make a postseason run. I think right now the focus has to be in the front office of how do we lengthen this lineup out more? How do we get better bats into the order? I know Jazz coming back is going to give them, probably 6 or 7 guys that they're pretty comfortable with on an everyday basis, hitting in the lineup. It just comes down to Wendell, Segura, Stallings, really, as far as those 3 guys in the order. Is the answer to, maybe a little bit more Birdie at third base. Maybe you call up a Jacob Amaya. Maybe you canvass the league and see if there's a team out there that needs, maybe a left-handed reliever for some, for a corner infielder, or a team that has an extra middle infielder that can hit that they want to give to the Marlins. So all this stuff is going to kind of come to the forefront. We're really starting to head into that trade season as the calendar flips from May into June, and the Marlins are keeping things interesting, folks. This is right now. This is a wild card team. The run differential is starting to flip the other way now. The pitching is improving. I think the hitting has been really good, at least at the top of the order. Just when you think about guys like Arraez, Gurriel, Sanchez, De La Cruz, Garrett Cooper today, but in general, he's been a little disappointing. But if he does get going, he can give, lengthen the lineup a little bit more. And Joey Wendell starting to turn it around just a little bit, but I still think that they should be looking to move on, admittedly, unless he completely shows something much different here. Um, when Nick Fortes catches and the more at bats he gets, the more I think he'll settle back into what we've seen from him a little bit more in his first 2 years, as opposed to the first month or so of this year. So I think that they're mostly fine at catcher, but I would still like to see them make an addition there. Maybe, obviously I don't think Salvador Perez is very likely, but that would be kind of the dream for this ball club, especially considering how close I think they are to actually contending. This is as convicted as I've been on this club all season long. I see the pieces. I see how everything can kind of fit and mesh together, especially if that starting pitching kind of starts to live up to the expectations that we had in the beginning of the season, and it's starting to turn around a little bit. This could be a dangerous club going into September, October. So keep your eyes on that, everybody. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Help us extend the reach of the podcast of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Wiedeke, and I will be back next week for another episode of Gone Fishing, hopefully after another successful week for your Miami Marlins. And I will see you all next time.